Hello, and welcome to our most recent interview on the future of English language teaching. What we're trying to do here is look into the future and see what our industry is going to look like after coronavirus. To do that, I'm talking today to McLaughlin, who's the director of Equals. She's going to tell us about Equals herself in a moment. These interviews are being released through our webpage, on YouTube, and over our Facebook page, all of which have places where you can leave comments. So please do contribute and let us know what you're thinking about so we can feed those into future discussions.
So how's lockdown been treating you, Lou?
Okay, I suppose. I mean, I've been in Ireland since it started, so mid-March, with the usual restrictions in place. So yeah, it's been the same as for everyone else, you know, not seeing family, friends. As a runner, I've learned to run a lot in loops as opposed to going for straight runs. So good that that's now opened up and we can go further than 5 kilometers. Yeah, no, overall, actually just really
I
great.
see, because you can't go more than 5 kilometers, you've got to keep running in circles. I wasn't sure of the technicalities of that. But how's lockdown been affecting Equals as an organisation?
Well, I suppose really as a team, it hasn't impacted us too much because, like yourself, we work virtually anyway. So there was no sort of transition to online and that. The main thing probably we felt initially was around obviously the inspections and the re-inspections, and so we were.
Of course, because you can't do site visits.
Yes, yeah. So, and we also felt, you know, that members were dealing with enough. So we postponed what we could and had plenty of flexibility around that. And then we also did plenty of work on the actual scheme itself, just making sure now that it's fit for purpose. So looking ahead, whether we want to do re-inspections maybe for members as solely online, whether we want to, you know, they might want a blended option, or hopefully face-to-face when, you know, when everything kind of gets back up and running, however that may look.
Okay. Just for the uninitiated, could you give us a précis of what Equals does and the kinds of things you're talking about? You mentioned inspections. That's one side of the organisation, but I know there are other things that you do.
Yeah. So I was just saying, with the accreditation, once we get to the actual point where schools are ready for the inspection to take place, that always has to date has taken place as a site visit. So we'd be there, we'd meet with the people, do the observations, see the site, all of that type of thing. Whereas now we're going to be offering the option for when we have the re-inspections. So we have the re-inspections every 4 years for members. They might want to do that online if that's where they are at the minute. They might, you know, a blended option might be more feasible, just to have one person on site, one online, or they're actually kind of postponing to hope that they'll actually get the on-site as well, because there's such value in the face-to-face and those conversations. So we'll sort of have to see how that goes.
Yeah, but I suppose if a lot of schools have moved online and they're doing most of their provision by distance, so that's something that needs to be inspected too. Are you in that kind of sense? Are you in the same space as Aqueduto?
Yes, well, we actually have an MOU with them, and so they have been very helpful previously in terms of anybody who has, you know, accreditation from them. We accept that's at the standards that we would meet. Otherwise, now we would be doing it ourselves as well for those that don't have Aqueduto. Yeah.
And most of your members are in Europe, aren't they? But I know there are members in other parts of the world. How far do you stretch?
At the minute, across 32 different countries. So we also have, you know, as far as Japan. Obviously the main base is in Europe, but it's been but it's been very interesting from the point of view, you know, with such a diverse membership. Obviously, this is the one time where everybody is going through a similar situation, dealing with similar issues at the same time, that type of thing. So, we've been been busy liaising with them and seeing how we can provide support and things like that. Obviously, one of the things we had mentioned there, as well as the accreditation that we do, we run an annual conference and training events, and that's something that unfortunately we've had to postpone. We originally postponed until October of this year.
Yes.
We've now got it postponed until 2021, just with travel restrictions, questions around quarantine, and being very honest, safety of attendees is paramount. So at this stage, we felt it was a safer option to postpone again, but then offer an online event during those dates. That would be the 22nd and 23rd of October. So at least then there'll still be that connection for people, because it's a real opportunity to meet up with the other members and just to have those sort of informal conversations that are equally as valid as the more formal presentations and things like that.
More important, I always think. I think the interesting stuff happens between the presentations at conferences. But I believe you've been in touch with all of your Equals members recently, haven't you? Can you share some of the common issues they're experiencing under these circumstances?
Yeah, absolutely. It was really informative, obviously, and sort of, I suppose many will know, but for those that don't, we have our membership is formed of some higher education institutions, so the university language centres, what I'll refer to as extensive schools for those that are in country, teaching English and potentially other languages. And then the intensive schools, which are those sort of study abroad or study travel schools. So, students will come over for immersion, whether that be in Ireland, the UK, Malta. They've all had, very similar experiences, obviously, in that they had to just respond very quickly to enforce lockdown, actually some from one day to the next, and move to some sort of online provision. And so with the higher education institutions, they've moved online, and this was a longer term view, as some of them are going to continue with that even through, summer school at the minute, or through Q3, Q4. And they sort of had that support in terms of maybe IT departments and all of that there. So they were able to do that relatively smoothly. The extensive schools, they moved again online, offering what they normally did to their members or to their students. And the main thing there is that was more of a temporary measure. So obviously now we're reopening again, and so there wasn't the whole issue of travel around that. The intensive schools that are members who are part of that, they've just been severely impacted. As you know, March lockdown has meant no incoming students on rolling enrollment at all since the end of Q1. High season, summer is not going ahead, is not happening. And yes, there are, some things are starting to reopen now, which is good to see, but lots of questions and uncertainty around travel restrictions, quarantine, and even, I've sort of said, they all have the same issue moving online. Then there were different ones within that, and now they're all facing the same again about reopening. What will that look like? What will social distancing measures actually mean? We have some members at the minute are, working towards piloting a hybrid model. So they'll have some students in class and some online. Some will offer more of a blended approach. And so trying to do the best that they can. I have to say, it's just been remarkable. It's just been such a privilege to see how they've really risen to the challenge. It's been a lot of difficult decisions for them. Something that no one can prepare for, with all of those, as we say at the minute, all of those unknowns. And so they really did a very, very good job in being able to respond to that. And
it has been a remarkable situation where you can't you have to make it up as you go along. It's so unpredicted. Nobody would have thought a year ago that we would be in this kind of situation at the moment. But what kind of good practice are you seeing in among your member schools? whether it be hybrid or blended learning or
Yeah.
online provision.
So it's a really good point, sort of what the way you've put it there. The initial was simply get online,
Yeah.
and then as we would expect, sort of from from the equals members, and the next one was how do we do that well, and where is the quality in it?
Right.
And so I think that also actually was very much in line with students becoming more aware of different quality standards in online delivery too, which is
They do that very quickly, don't they?
Yeah, very,
They
very
get to
important
know
point.
very fast. This is good and this is rubbish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so, as I said, like it was the members just not simply going online, and we had lovely examples of it. So, for example, we did a webinar with a case study from AFO, who Language and Examination Centre. They're in Sofia. So they took us through, the steps that they did, everything that they had in place, and benchmarking against the quality standards as they went along. That was one sort of thing, making sure that the standards were addressed, even if it was on. Yeah, we then had a very nice example also from AC English, who really delved into the whole area of around observations, for example, and support.
Oh, where are they?
Globally, so they're in quite a
right.
few different places. Yeah, we have our members in Cape Town and the UK and that. So one of the things which was interesting was that they talked about what doesn't work as well, and that was a very open and I suppose frank sharing of knowledge and helping everybody to make those decisions. One of the big things I wanted to mention was in relation to the intensive schools. So those students who are in another country, and a lot of them did remain there. We had one of our members, ATC, actually take us through how they looked after students and their well-being and the social programs that they built in. And again, it was very much in line with sort of the quality and making sure the students were okay, so that they had it at both sides, both for online provision, but also the looking after, rather than sort of just once the class finishes, leaving them, I suppose, to their own thing. Yeah. And then
what does a student social program look like when it's online?
It looks very entertaining, I have to say. So for example, So for example, they had some really wonderful things where they had an ATC bake-off. So this would be linked to sort of, lessons where they would go through things, they would get the information, the students had the opportunity to go buy what they needed for this particular recipe, let's say, and then they would do that online in a group and go through the whole thing. Another option they had were their yoga lessons and wellness, that type of thing with meditation. Another day was their weekly quiz night. So I think those type of things where they were trying to really bring them together, and then also use just, I suppose, resources that are already online, such as virtual tours of museums that they can do together. A lot of thought and work going into it to make sure that felt a part of it. And then regular check-ins with a welfare officer and making sure they had someone to talk to. I think that's the other side of it, and that's the sort of the making sure every part of delivery is covered. So I felt within the membership it really came to the fore in that they were sharing their experiences, their knowledge, what worked well, not just simply sort of what works, but what works well and how to keep improving, and questioning each other on it, which is really good. And it's that sort of pushing it each time, not just simply thinking that what we do is sufficient, but how to improve it. So it's been really interesting to see that. Yeah.
So that's brilliant. So there's been this initial move to online. I'm sure there are a lot of students are not being able to get to the schools that they wanted to go to, and admissions may well be down, and over the summer period we're going to see a lot of difficulty in the fact that not many people are going to be able to travel as they would do. So are there any indications about how we're dealing with this crisis financially as an industry?
Being glib was quite a bit of difficulty and trepidation. I mean, I think
Yeah.
the initial focus with again with study abroad schools and that linked with agents was which was good to see, a lot of open communication and discussion around options such as maybe vouchers or credit notes or that type of thing,
Right.
because everybody wants to see the industry continue,
Yes.
and it's very much there's that sort of dependency. So I think, yeah, an awareness on both parts to see what they can do, and that's an ongoing conversation. And then many countries also had, I suppose, support in or government aid or assistance in some shape or form, and that's been a temporary measure. So
But that's also very country specific, isn't it?
yes, absolutely.
No, in the UK, the government hasn't been that terribly open to helping out language schools. I don't think they see it as a priority, despite the amount of money that the industry brings into the UK.
Exactly.
And do you remember when Brexit was the only thing on the the only item we were talking about for a long time? I know.
And we all wanted something else to talk about. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
It seems insignificant at the moment, although that's going to come back and bite us in the bum in January, I think.
Yes, that'll be yeah. But I think the real impact is, it's going to come to the fore now, really, when those particular measures in the various places come to an end, and then
Yes.
it's so we'll not just a wait and see, but there'll be a very, very big impact, obviously, on schools from that.
What do you think will be the longer term challenges for language schools and the institutes? What are your members seeing as the main hurdles, if you like, for the future, or opportunities even?
Well, yeah, there's that side of things too. I suppose the main concern, irrespective of the other things I've mentioned, the main concern now is a sort of a second wave or an outbreak in Q3, Q4 of this year, and the impact then that will have. They're doing their best to work with sort of these social distancing restrictions, trying to get things in place for that. But there are still travel restrictions, limited travel options for others, and how long that will continue or not is there, obviously a concern about that. And then with further outbreaks or things, when does confidence come back? And in the marketplace for students to travel, I think is a big one as well. So that's the main one. And obviously then, at a global level, we're looking at sort of recession and impact then on, on travel, study travel, what demand there might be for language training initially. As a sector, there is a belief that yes, it will be there, but it's just that time before it's able to maybe get back to.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? Just thinking about whether in a time of global recession, is language development a necessity, or is it a luxury? Do you need the language to be able to get a job? Or is it something that you can't afford to do and therefore will postpone until later?
No one answer, but I think that's also not just context specific, but what we had seen before is just also very much sort of on the individual, those, when things happen before, those making choices to actually invest in the language and themselves and possible future possibilities then around jobs and that. But at the minute, very unclear.
Yeah, absolutely. And are there any other major trends that you're seeing among your institutions? I mean, you've mentioned the move to hybrid learning, moving online a lot, blended learning, but maintaining quality standards. Are there any other major trends that you've seen among your members?
I think that covers the main ones at the minute. I think with those, what they're also trying to be aware of is sort of, even if you can, sort of a future proofing, let's say, to see what may happen in the future. And the development that they have put into that online provision means it will be there. You know, yes, it might take a slightly different form. Again, it might be more of a book ending around particular course offerings or something like that, but it's not something that's sort of going to go away. And it's been interesting to hear back from them that even from students, there's a real need and a want to get back to face-to-face. However, that's not everybody. Some have really valued the online experience and seen how actually it's a bit more feasible for them. So interesting responses to it. And I think maybe at the beginning, most of us were thinking, well, you know, is this simply a temporary measure? But where it is in the main, it's not something that we in general don't think is sort of going to disappear after this. It's not going to go back to a sort of a normal or the way it was necessarily for quite a while.
That's a question that I was asking Nikki Hockley last week. I mean, I mentioned that the UK Parliament had this terribly feasible online system where everyone was included and everybody was working at a distance, and it worked wonderfully. And now they voted to go back to normal face-to-face working, which to me seems like a retrograde step. Do you think in language schools that this has pushed people to use the technology and to move online a lot faster, a lot more than perhaps they were? Do you think that really is going to be the way of the future? Is this going to be how language schools are going to operate in the future?
I don't think so, but I think it will be part of it. You know, whereas I think before, where I was saying at the beginning, you know, the members really had to turn around very quickly, and majority of them, for, you know, organising online provision. It wasn't necessarily something that was part of what they had offered. And they were able to do it, and I think it showed them as well that they could. But as I said, I think that it will continue to be part of it in some way, but not necessarily be the way, I don't think, sort of going forward.
Okay, good. I think that's been a really interesting discussion. Are there any, I know you've been doing a lot of work in webinars and providing resources for your members, and are there publicly available resources that you would recommend from Equals that you can highlight?
Yes, actually, we did a series of about 15 or 16 of webinars specifically devoted to sort of move online. And as you'll see, you know, it reflected, I think, the initial move, which was from how to use these platforms to then build up in terms of managing and then quality and competences and things like that. So all of those webinars that we have done with their related resources are free to everybody on the Equals website.
Oh, excellent.
So
that's really good.
Encourage people to go there and have a look. And then that will also bring you to a whole page of resources which our associate members, different examination boards and publishers have shared with us too. And so all of the links are there as well for people.
Smashing. Well, we'll put some links to those on the information associated with this video, and that'll be available on our website, on the Facebook page, through Twitter and all various social media. But thanks very much, Lou. That was a really interesting discussion, and I hope that others will be able to benefit from those resources and find out a bit more about Equals, which I think is one of the best organisations out there in our industry. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.